Free time events are a core part of the Danganronpa structure. In every daily life section, you'll get time to hang out with any of the students, and then get skills that you can use for the trials. However, I'm personally not a fan of this addition for many reasons, and that's what I want to explain today. You hear it all the time. Someone says they hate a character, and then the common response is, did you play their free time events? I guess we can start here because I disagree with the fact that you need to play free time events to fully judge a character. Free time events are optional. If you want, you can skip free time events in the main game. And you'll never be able to get through every free time event in your first playthrough. If free time events are optional, you shouldn't need to wait for free time events to like a character. It's the job of the main game to make you like the characters so that you'll end up playing the free time events. How the characters act in the main game are a lot more important, and if someone doesn't like a certain character in the main game, I can't blame them for not playing through that character's free time. The only characters I think deserve the attention of free time events no matter what are characters that died in Chapter 1. Chapter 1 characters just don't have the necessary time to make them as great as everyone else can be. So, free time events can help the first few to die. Next, I want to talk about how free time events disrupt the main story completely. Like, there will be some interesting plot taking place in the story, and you're waiting for the characters to have more discussion about what's going on. And then you get hit with free time, and it just ruins the flow of the story. I don't remember any specific moments off the top of my head, but I recall this happening so many times. It can also disrupt the flow of a character's arc. Like in Danganronpa V3, Himiko goes through her arc, but if you do her free time events, she'll revert back to her old self because the free time events are isolated from the main story. And that's the weird thing about FTEs, they're not canon, so they just feel like this weird dream in the middle of every chapter. Sure, the backstories are real, but a lot of the interactions themselves don't feel real. So fine, let's talk about the backstories then, if that's the canon element. Are the backstories enough of an incentive for me to do FTEs? And you know what? Yeah, I think they are. It's still interesting to learn more about these characters, but I don't think I find free times as useful as many others. While backstories can be helpful, I don't think they're super important to a character. Personally for me, the most important thing for characters is their dynamics and then their development. Backstory is the last thing on the list for a character in my opinion. I think dynamics are the most important because most of the game is just characters talking to each other. It doesn't really get more simple than that. I also like how characters interact specifically in the killing game atmosphere, which is one of the main reasons I like Danganronpa. You got a group of characters who talk to each other and react differently to the grim situation they're in. However, with free time events, it's just the protagonist and the other character, and a lot of the time, the killing game is avoided completely and you just talk about other things. This setup isn't bad per se, but I think it's less interesting overall. Another thing characters are missing in the free time events is development. For me, development just means any type of change a character goes through over time. You could say a character develops through free time because they become more friendly with the protagonist over time. But again, the minute you're out of the free time and back to the main story, they revert back to their old selves. That connection to the protagonist is lost. So that leaves a backstory. I welcome giving characters a backstory and a reason for why the characters act the way they do. It's just last on my priorities for characters, and oftentimes it's the only thing I can get out of free times. And sometimes what they give you backstory wise is already implied in the main game, making the free time events feel even less useful. Like with Akane's free time, I remember them giving her the whole backstory about how she was poor and how she stole food for her siblings. But I feel like that backstory was already built fairly well in the main game. The main game gave a lot of clues and even outright stated parts for backstory, so in the end, her free time ended up feeling a little weak. And a lot of the time, I don't feel like the reason for why a character acts a certain way is as interesting as how a character acts and how that affects everyone around them. A lot of the free times also just end up feeling like a dating sim rather than actually learning more about the characters. This mostly applies to the female cast, because there are a lot of instances where a girl character just ends up falling in love with the protagonist for no reason. It doesn't do anything for their characters, and it just takes up more time. That being said, I like doing free time events a lot more after the entire game ends. This way free times don't interrupt the main game, and in that context, I'm fine with them. And in that sense, saving backstory for the free time events is a good thing. It's just supposed to be an add-on to the characters and nothing more. characters should be fleshed out in the main game unless they die very early. I think where I differ from people is that I've heard a lot of people say free times can change their opinion on a character completely. For me, that's never been the case. If anything, it may cause me to like a character a tiny bit more, but that's all. So to summarize, I value characters in the main game a lot more because they can interact with all the characters, they can react to being in the killing game, we get to see how they change as the killing game progresses, and the interactions are definitively canon. So yeah, that's all I have to say about free time events. They can be fun, but I don't see as much utility in them as most people do, and I don't think people should get mad at others if they haven't seen a character's free time events. So yeah, that's all, and I'll see you guys for the next video.